Can you hear me now? Salt and light. Thank you, Hunter. Matthew 5. You are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. I'm going to ask David if he would to lead us in an opening prayer this morning. The great salt debate. Salt, is it good for you or bad for you? To salt or not to salt? That is the question. Go ask your doctor. Who's on a salt-free diet here? Anybody? Nobody. I am. There we go. How's it going? You are salt. You make Jesus taste better to the world. Hunter, you are the salt of the earth. Kurt, you are the salt of the earth. John, you're the salt of the earth. Both Johns. Today, Jesus might say something like, you are the gold and silver of the earth. You are so valuable and precious to me. What was salt to the first century church? I think to understand that will help you understand this passage better. Like gold, salt was hard to obtain. Salt was as rare as gold is today. And in the first century, don't forget, there was no electricity. No freezers, no refrigerators, no way to preserve food for a long time. Salt was used to preserve food. In the first century, if you take a look at chemically impure salt, which is what they usually were able to gather up, if it's exposed to the elements and it rains on it, and the salt kind of washes away. So salt, if salt loses its saltiness, it becomes worthless. And which is what Jesus was saying. Sometimes the Roman soldiers, they were paid in salt. That's where that phrase comes from, you're not worth your salt. In the time of Jesus, salt had three very special properties. Purity. The salt had to be pure. In fact, the Roman soldiers would take this pure salt and offer it to their gods, and it had to be pure. Preservative. Salt was used to delay putrefaction of meat. That means to keep it from going bad. It was also a type of antiseptic to ward off infections. Salt enhances the flavor of food, as it does today. If you have ever had McDonald's and had to ask for French fries without salt, yuck. As the salt of the earth, we are both valuable and useful to Jesus and to the world. Rebecca Pipett wrote a book, Out of the Salt Shaker. In this one phrase, she said, salt left in the salt shaker is worthless. Verse 13 said, Jesus said, if salt loses its saltiness, it's worthless. Now, salt does not lose its taste or flavor naturally. It is sodium chloride, NaCl. But I have three possibilities of how, in the first century, the salt could have become worthless. First, as I started to mention before when I mixed up my pages, salt, if they used chemically impure salt and left it out to the elements, the salt would leach out, and all you had left was sediments and impurities, and it was worthless. Second possibility is in the first century, Arab bakers used to take these salt blocks and put them in the bottom of their ovens. And after a while, the salt would start to crystallize and become worthless and didn't have the same heat properties. So they would have to take that salt out and put new blocks in, and that salt was worthless. But the most fascinating thought of this is I got this from Barclay. It's from a translation that we don't use anymore, the Aramaic Bible in Plain English. Anybody ever read that one? It says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if salt becomes insipid, with what shall it be salted again?" Insipid. I had to look that word up. This one definition, insipid, explains the whole passage. Insipid is an adjective used to describe something that is lacking in flavor, interest, or stimulation. It can be used to describe food that is bland or lacking in taste. It can also be used to describe people, activities, entertainment that is dull or lacking in energy. The word comes from the Latin insipidus, which means the opposite of flavorful. Does not make it clearer. When Julius became Caesar after Constantinople, he took a look at what Constantine did, and he made Christianity the state religion. And he looked around and he said, "Have you seen these Christians lately? Hollow-eyed, pale-cheeked, brooding their life away. Let's go back to the old way, to the pagan way that we used to do." That is the perfect example of an insipid Christian, no salt. When people see you, do they see an insipid Christian? Or do they see somebody who's filled with the Holy Spirit, with the fruits of the Spirit, the joy, love, peace? What do they see? Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes in 1902. He is quoted as saying, "I might have entered the ministry if certain clergymen that I knew had not looked and acted so much like undertakers." Either way, Jesus does not want our saltiness to become worthless. Salt that remains in the salt shaker is useless. We need to get out of our comfort zone and start sharing our salt. Share the flavor of Jesus with others. Sometimes our salt comes out and we're not even aware of it. I don't see Dorothy this morning, but she told me something that just warmed my heart. I used to teach at the Williamstown Christian School. I taught the science curriculum and also the music. And she said that her daughter Cindy became a science teacher because of my science class, because I made science fun. Blow things up, stink things up. We had a lot of fun up there. And that really warmed my heart. I didn't even realize I was having that effect on my students. When I found out that another student, Elaine, became a professional musician because of my course, when I encouraged her or forced her to do these solos. And she realized that she really loved to do that. My sister Nancy came up to visit us shortly after we were married in Syracuse and looked at me and said, "Jim, I don't know what happened to you, but I want what you have." I didn't even know that my salt was being shared. The best salt is when it comes out of the salt shaker without you even knowing it, because that is your natural personality. But salt can be a bad thing too. A saltless, insipid Christian can bring shame to the church and shame on the Lord's name. Ever wonder why God turned Lot's wife into a pillar of salt? Actually, some versions say she became salt. Salt can make things worthless. In 1864, Union General William T. Sherman began his march across Georgia. He went from Georgia to the sea to break the will of the Confederate population. And it is believed that the Union soldiers, when they went through these fields, they salted the fields to ruin them so that nothing would grow there. The Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah is a barren wasteland. Nothing grows there either. In Jeremiah, chapter 17, starting with verse 5, Jeremiah quotes, "I will put a curse on the people. It will be as though they were growing in the stony wastelands in the wilderness, in a salt land where no one can live." Lot's wife turned back, and she became worthless. Luke 9:62, Jesus says to the man who wanted to follow him but wanted to go bury his parents first after they died in 20, 30 years. Jesus said to him, "No one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God." Philippians 3, verse 13, Paul says, "Forgetting what lies behind and reaching out for the things that are ahead." And Paul had a lot to forget. Luke 17:32, Jesus warns us not to look back. He said to remember what happened to Lot's wife. Lot's wife looked back and turned into a pillar of salt. When I was a kid, Mom was driving us to the doctors, and we were acting up, and she looked back and she turned into a telephone pole. That's for those of you who had your eyes closed. When Jesus said you are the salt of the earth, he was saying you are so valuable and so cherished. You enhance God's flavor to those who know not God. You are a preservative in a world that is rotting in sin. It's like the violinist who takes hold for the first time of a Stradivarius, one of the most valuable violins, and all he can do is look at it and go, "You are the salt of the earth." So valuable. Verse 14, "You are the light of the world. A city located on a hill cannot be hidden. People do not light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand. And it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before people so that they can see your good deeds and give honor to your Father in heaven." Look at some examples where there is no light. When I heard about these 5 men who perished in that little submarine, and they talked about how it changed as it went down, and at 3,300 feet, light cannot penetrate that deep into the ocean. It is total blackness. I remember Howe Caverns in upstate New York. When I was a kid, Mom and Dad brought us up to there on a vacation. And when you walk into this building, there's a big elevator there. You get in there and you go down 156 feet below the Earth's surface. And when you get out, when the elevator door opens up, there's a river in front of you, an underground river, and you get in this boat and you take the tour. And he shows you all the stalactites and stalagmites, and and the sediment running down the walls and what that means. Then at the end, you come to this vestibule, and you get out of the boat, and I remember the floor had embedded lights in it. And you talked about how people would get married here and how special this place is. Then all of a sudden, all the lights went out. I will never forget that total darkness. Darkness so thick that you could taste it. And as a kid, it terrified me. I was scared. It reminds me of Matthew 8:12, where Jesus said, but the sons of the kingdom will be cast out into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I think I understand why. I remember longing for that guy to turn those lights back on, but he wanted us to experience what total darkness and blackness was. It reminded me of the farm where Judy grew up on a hill, no lights around, and she was up there with the kids, and all of a sudden all the lights went out. And you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And she knew in the kitchen counter where the flashlight was, and so she went and she was feeling around for the flashlight. She found the butter. She found the pudding. And her niece had moved the flashlight into a drawer, but she finally found that. It's a perfect example of the world today, trying to find their way out of darkness without Jesus. I was 17 years old when I left the denomination that I grew up in. And I walked into that church building for the last time and saying, if this is Christianity, I want nothing more to do with it, 17 years old. And for the next 4 years of my life, I longed for someone to show me the light that was real. I was looking for Jesus. And at Marine Midland Banks, where I worked as a computer operator, my friend Bob did just that. And I don't believe I was unique. Just show me something that is real, and I'll embrace it. There are people today that are delusioned because of what the world calls Christianity, and they look at the hypocrisy on the TV and the hypocrisy they hear in the churches, and they say, if this is Christianity, I want nothing to do with it. But then one of you come along and share something that is real. I am not unique. And there's a lot of people today that are just longing. Show me something that's real. You are the light of the world. What you have will save people from hell and save them from that place of eternal darkness. Remember those 12 boys in Thailand that were stuck in that underground cave? They went exploring, and the monsoons came in, and the floodwaters rose, and they were sealed in that cave. Some divers tried to get them out, and they were eventually successful. Imagine what it was like, 17 days. 9 of those days was in total darkness. And you sit there. All of a sudden you see a little pinprick of a light. And it starts growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And then a blinding light comes out with a man attached to it. And he is the one who saves you from certain death. What joy that light was to their eyes. What joy Bob's light was to my soul. Brothers and sisters, let your light shine. The world is getting darker. Christians' lights are getting dimmer. And some have put a basket over their lights already. The basket of trying to be politically correct. You can't talk about abortion, homosexuality, fornication, transgenderism, etc. You name the list. You can't talk about that, or you're not politically correct. The basket of tolerance and diversity. Oh, it doesn't matter what you believe, as long as you're sincere, Muslim, Jew, Hindu, Buddhist, atheist, agnostic. I'm okay, you're okay. In case you haven't noticed, June is Pride Month. If you have anything to say against it, they will say that you're a bigot, a homophobe, and no tolerance towards this new community. And so, you put the basket over your light because you don't want to offend anybody. And finally, the basket of laziness and selfishness. What do you do with your free time? Do you spend your days and nights watching TV, playing games, sports? We sit in silence while millions are lost eternally. We have the answer to bring this world out of the darkness. In Matthew 7:21, Jesus said, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many mighty works in your name?' And I will declare to them, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness.'" Imagine Jesus on the day of judgment. "You were ashamed of me, and now I will be ashamed of you for all eternity." There's an illustration that I thought about that this is as I remember it. My wife and I have to say that to each other now. This is as I remember it. She says, "No, I'm right." This is as I remember it. It was a young boy and his twin sister. And the sister had this blood disease that they couldn't find a matching blood type, and she was going to die. The doctors and the parents begged the brother, "Won't you give some blood to your sister?" And he was afraid. But as he watched his sister getting weaker and weaker and her life ebbing away, he finally agreed to give his blood. They wheeled him and his sister into the operating room, and being this is an emergency, they actually put the needle in his arm and in her arm, and the blood started to flow. And he saw his sister's face. Immediately the color came back. He looked up and said, "Mom, how long? How long till what? How long before I die and all my blood is gone?" See, he thought he was giving a sacrifice when he was really giving a gift. Let your light shine. Let Jesus reflect in your life. You're not going to die. In fact, you will never die. You need to share the blood of Jesus that is running through your souls with those who are dying. And that's the gift that we have that we can share. Let your light shine. Take the basket off your lights and let it shine. Put your light high in a lampstand so that everyone can see it. And finally, verse 16, let your light shine before people so that they can see your good deeds and give honor to your Father in heaven. Remember what James 2 says? What good is it, my brother, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? And 17, so also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. Someone will say, "You have faith and I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works, and I will show you my faith by your works." That explains verse 16. So that they can see your good deeds and give honor to your Father in heaven. Let your light shine. Show the world your faith by what you do. And you will give glory and honor to your Father in heaven. One day, when it is all over, we will not just be saved from the penalty of sin. We will be saved from the power of sin. In glorification, we will be saved from the very presence of sin. Nothing sinful or impure will be found in heaven. This is the gospel that the world needs to know. Let your light shine. Don't be intimidated by Satan's threats, because ultimately, he has no power over you. Don't fear the person that can kill the body and then have nothing more to do, but fear him who can kill the body and cast the soul into hell. In 1980, the New Life Quartet sang a song called Plenty of Time. It always moved me. I got up one Sunday morning, went to the church at 10. I listened to the words I've heard time and time again. The preacher spoke of sinful lives. It seemed he spoke of mine, but I was young. I had plenty of time. Plenty of time to decide where I'm bound, to eternal darkness or to the heavenly grounds. I'm just a young man, not yet in my prime, so I'll just wait. I've got plenty of time. And the song ends with this young man finding himself in eternity. That 19-year-old boy that was in the sub thought he had plenty of time too. And in an instant, all opportunity for salvation was gone. And that's another basket that we wind up putting over our lights, that there's no hurry. We got plenty of time. You know, I was 40 years old just a couple weeks ago, and I'll be turning 71 in December. Plenty of time. Paul warned the Thessalonians about this very same thing. Society was telling everyone to eat, drink, and be merry. You have plenty of time. But as we know, in 70 A.D., Jerusalem was destroyed and death came suddenly. According to Josephus, the estimation of Jews slain was about 1.1 million. And after that, another 11,000 died of starvation. Paul warns the Thessalonians about their complacency. He could have written this verse in 2023. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. But concerning the times and the seasons, brethren, you have no need that I should write to you. For you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so comes as a thief in the night. For when they say peace and safety, then suddenly destruction comes upon them as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape. You are the precious salt that this world needs. You are the beacon of light in this dark world. I have to keep repeating that. So let's go out and share the good news. Well, last week, Todd warned us that if you talk too fast, you'd run out of time. You'd run out of things to say. And so I could either let you guys go out and get some coffee, or I can continue. Okay, I'll continue. Ezekiel 33:6 says, But the watchman sees the sword come, and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned. If the sword come, and take any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity. But his blood will I require at the watchman's hand. The watchman was responsible for keeping the city safe. And if he did not sound the alarm when the enemy came, their blood will be on his hands. There's a song that we used to sing, I don't know if you sing it here anymore, entitled, You Never Mention Him to Me. Such a moving song. Will there be people on Judgment Day that come up to you and say, You never mentioned him to me. You helped me not the light to see. You met me day by day and knew I was astray, yet you never mentioned him to me. I'd like to close with an illustration of a young lady that really impressed me. How she let her light shine. She was the valedictorian in June of her high school. Her name was Linda Owens. Some of you might have heard this story. And in her high school address, she mentions how she overcame the tragedy of the death of her mother. And then she goes on to explain what true success is and who is responsible for it. She said, "It is not perfectionism. I don't have to be perfect. It's not the achievements of my life, my job. It's not how much money I make, how many friends I have. This is not what gives you value. What happens when these fail? Placing your identity in the things of this world will let you down." I made the mistake when I worked at Simonton Windows of making Simonton my home. And when they fired me, I was devastated because everything was tied up. My life was tied up at Simonton Windows. By the way, they hired me back. They realized they made a mistake, but that's another story. But I realized how easy it is to misplace what you trust in. Some people trust in doctors and hospitals. I trust in the everlasting Lord. David said, "Some trust in horses and chariots, but I trust in the everlasting Lord." What's interesting, after this speech, Twitter lit up and made snide comments about her speech. One Twitter tweet says, "Religion does not belong in public schools. If you know what your gods are, you would not be so cavalier about saying Jesus is the answer. History is a great teacher. Look and understand." Another tweet said, "What you said was illegal. Separation of church and state. What if she praised Muhammad? Would you think differently?" I would love to give a lesson on separation of church and state and what that really means. But now I'm running out of time. Right? She expected these type of comments, and they didn't affect her in the least. Why? Never be surprised when the world acts like the world. She says that she is secure in Jesus Christ and in her salvation. So go out and be salt. Let the world see the flavor of Jesus in your life. And let your light shine, that others can find their way out of the darkness. What baskets are you struggling with? Now I open it up for any comments or questions, or we're done. Kurt, you broke your promise. I hope I hope you think a lot about what I just shared with you. The teacher always gets so much more out of the lesson he prepares. And I realize where I've missed being salt and light. Those of you who are a member of our Bob Evans Club know that when we go to Bob Evans, that the waitresses there don't look at us as undertakers. And we bring joy to the waitresses there, and they fight over who gets to wait on our table. And I found out now that the loser has to wait on our table. No, we have a great time there, but let your light shine. Think about it next time you go to the grocery store, next time you go out to eat, that they're looking at you. They don't want to see an undertaker. They want to see somebody that has the Holy Spirit, the fruits of the Spirit, the love, the joy, the peace, and that's my lesson. Thank you. So now you can visit with each other.